All right. I think we are live. I think we got people coming in. So that's good. Thanks so much for everyone who is here attending live. Thank you if you're watching this recording later on. But we're going to jump right in and get started talking about AI, artificial intelligence. Obviously, it's the thing that everyone's been talking about. It feels like the entire year so far. And the fears that it's going to replace everybody, or what it might hold. And so today, Julie and I are going to be talking about just the challenges, the opportunities for you as a law firm owner. My name is John Henson. I am the editorial director at Spotlight Branding. We provide content marketing for law firms designed to help you generate more referrals, help you attract the right kinds of clients. And for those people in here who may not be familiar with Julie, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do at MTS?
Yeah, fantastic. I'm really a serial entrepreneur who really coaches people today on profitability. How do you make more money? How do you take more home? Which I think is so important. I am the president of the $1 Million Solution, and that is a coaching group that helps elder law and estate planning attorneys and financial advisors who focus on long-term care have the lives and practices that they really desire. So with that, really what we're going to talk about today is one of the hallmarks of the $1 Million Solution, and that is really staying ahead of the curve, really spending time thinking about whatever business, whatever law practice you're in right now, how do you make sure that your practice is going to look like what it needs to 5 years from now or 10 years around. I kind of joke that, the $1 Million Solution is really good at looking around the corner. And this is something that is of great interest to me of what should we be doing today to make sure our practices stay up, but also remain profitable. And, I don't know, John, with COVID and all of the automations and changes that we've seen, I don't think there's ever a time that we really need to be thinking about that. Although for me, for the $1 Million Solution, it's broader than just technology. Our other main focus really right now is helping practices present with a dementia focus, to know how to help clients that they're already serving who have dementia do that better. And let's be honest, if you're elder law and estate planning attorney on here, you are serving people with dementia by definition. Those people are in front of us. And the question is, how well are we serving them? But also the question is, it's great niche marketing. And it's transformed my practice. And so for me, again, as a profitability, niche marketing is always great. And so that's really what we do at the $1 Million Solution. And I'm thrilled to be here with John from Spotlight Branding, because Spotlight Branding is definitely a partner with us when we're trying to help law firms become more profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. And, for people out there, I know you guys put on a lot of really great events. I know you have the Dementia Focused Practice event coming up in November. I've been to that one a couple of times. It's a really great event. Phoenix in the winter. It's a great choice, especially if you live in a northern state. But you guys do a lot of really good events at other times of the year. So if anyone in here has not gone to an event hosted by MTS, I highly recommend it. As for today, and just kind of a quick kind of overview of what we're going to be talking about, we'll kind of talk a little bit about, kind of the current landscape of AI in the legal space, where AI is currently being used. We'll also talk about what's coming around the corner to kind of echo Julie's language there a little bit. We'll also talk about some of the ethical considerations for it, some big things to not do with AI. And you may have seen some recent news articles of some lawyers who found that out the hard way. And then we'll also make sure that we leave plenty of time at the end for questions. We had some people submit some questions beforehand who weren't going to be able to make it live. But along the way, if any of you in here have a question, throw it in the chat. And we will make sure that we get to it. If not immediately, we will definitely get to it at the end. So don't be shy. Throw your questions out there. So in terms of kind of the current landscape of AI, one of the things that I heard someone say a couple of months ago is that kind of this era that we're in right now is comparable to when like Atari first came out, like the very first Atari video game system came out, you know? And so like back then it was mind-blowing technology. People were amazed that they could play a game on their TV, even though maybe looking back on it now, really basic, really just like a couple of pixels moving back and forth. And so, you know, the analogy was 20, 30 years from now, the AI integrations and all that's going to look way different. But imagine, you know, especially if you're kind of unfamiliar with video games right now, if you went and picked up an Atari system, it would still feel very foreign to you. But if you grew up with Atari and then moved on to like the Sega Genesis and the Nintendo 64s and all of that kind of stuff, like you've been kind of integrated into that, you're very used to that. And so that's kind of where we are right now. And some of the early tools that I've seen in law firms, and Julie, I want to see what your experience has been here, but I know there's a lot of AI tools around like e-discovery. I know CasePoint, I think, has some AI tools with that. Legal research with like Case Text, Fastcase, they're using some AI integrations to help you streamline your research. Document management and automation becoming more and more, especially with like the CRM platforms. I know if anyone out there is using the Assembly Neos platform, I know they just launched a new AI kind of integration within their program. And then litigation analysis with Bloomberg. Litigate is another company out there who is using AI integrations to help kind of analyze and help you better kind of project how litigation might end up going for you and your client. And so, Julie, I mean, you know, what have you been seeing out there, either with what you guys are doing in your own firm or even with some of the people in MDS as it relates to how they're using AI in their firms?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, John, I have to tell you, like, Frogger on the Atari system still is the best. It still is the best.
Oh yeah, the classics.
But, you know, I think, you know, for me, a lot of the firms that I'm working with, they're really using it for content creation, particularly as a first draft for marketing, content, those types of things. But I think for everything that you just talked about, I think the important words are analysis to like help us issue spot. What are the things that we haven't thought about? I think is really helpful. I also think that for me, I was actually just at the ACTEC conference, and we were talking about it there. And somebody there, I wish I could remember who it was, talked about the fact that it's really good at giving me a first draft. And that's how I feel about it right now. And I think as that Atari system, that's very true, that it would allow me to take something or ask a question, kind of flesh out some issues, add some things to it. But it's kind of that, you know, first year associate that I might be working with that's going to give me kind of the same level. But that's helpful for me as an attorney, because whether I'm dealing with marketing or I'm dealing with an analysis of, you know, a case, issue spotting is so important, and like broadening how other people think about it, how my opposing counsel is going to be thinking about it. I think for me, that's kind of the sweet spot.
Yeah. And you talk about like that first draft sort of thing. You know, it is great right now in terms of the time commitment that you would normally have to do for that research and all of that. The one thing, and we'll dive more of this into this in a bit, in the ethics side of things, Chat GPT specifically, the knowledge base that it's working with is, I think the last I saw was like September 2021. So I mean, almost 2 years of information that it's not giving you. So you have to be careful with what kind of prompts that you're feeding it. You know, if you're trying to find, you know, content that's going to be up to date, that may not be the way to go. More surface level stuff, you know, stuff that's a little bit more evergreen, that's probably where it's going to be really, really useful for you. So I would be careful there. But yes, you know, on the marketing side, you know, we're seeing a lot of that as well, especially when it comes to, you know, creating graphics and to your point, you know, the content as well being more of a research thing, because it's not going to replace that actual human touch, the unique tone, the unique perspective. It can give you the bullet points and it can get you started, but you still do need to go in there and proofread it, edit it, and make sure that it fits your style and your pacing. And I can't remember if it was you and I talking offline, or maybe it was someone else that I was listening to, where it was kind of addressing that concern of like, is AI going to replace lawyers, and is it going to replace human workers altogether? And it was more, the answer was more, lawyers who use AI are going to replace the lawyers who don't use AI, because their processes and their flows are going to be so much more efficient than the firms that don't. They're going to be able to move through cases more efficiently, much more faster than firms who are not using it and who are relying on older methods of doing that. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that's why, we have to understand that, we see that case out there where an attorney, used AI and, ended up with a citation that wasn't correct. So first of all, we have to understand, and it's why it's good everybody's on here, is we have to understand what AI is, what its limits are, what it's doing. But, particularly the older versions, and I think this is something that's changing. It's designed to give you an answer. And if it doesn't know the answer, it's going to make it up. Yeah. And when in some of the software that we use, you can put in the prompt, and I want cites with it. Like, don't make anything up. You can actually tell some of these platforms that. And so I encourage you guys to do that. So, I know like a lot of people have heard about that case where, an attorney got in trouble. Well, they should have checked their sites, so we really have to understand that. But I think, so the reason I bring that up, John, with your question is, we can't just say it's not good, because I 100% agree with you. You're correct that the attorneys that are leveraging this, any businesses that are leveraging this, are going to outpace businesses that aren't. And the reason is because it's going to add to our profitability. It's going to allow me to get farther faster and less expensively. And it's going to allow more out of me. I can very easily take a first draft and make it really good. And that's going to take me a lot less time I always call it Julieize it, to Julieize it.
Yeah.
Get rid of what I don't agree with, add, develop more than it would if I had to do it all from scratch. And in the day and age of work-life balance and me coaching many attorneys who are working too many hours already, these are things that you have to not just say that's not good, but figure out what part of it is good and helpful. Put proper boundaries around it, and we'll talk about that later on. What we've done at our firm, and then embrace it and play around with it, and get for it what you need out of your businesses. So I 100% agree with you, John. It's one of those things that's going to separate the pack. And particularly, I love your little Atari thing, particularly because we're just at the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. This is just the beginning part of it. So I think that's important for us to be thinking about.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is that, I don't think it's going to replace attorneys.
Right.
So, and I want to make that distinction because, listen, these platforms, AI, it doesn't make value judgments, and it's not going to be able to do that. It's about looking at facts and figures, analyzing, but it's not making a value judgment. And if I were thinking about, no matter what type of practice I was in, if I was thinking about how do I make sure I stay up involved with it, it's not just using AI, it's also making sure I'm not spending my time that really could be done by a first-year associate or somebody else or AI. And so it's going to demand that we spend our time doing more things. And so for me, I think this is true not just of AI, but of automation, digital intakes, all kinds of things, building funnels from a marketing standpoint, websites that can accept payments and all kinds of things. I think that it's really important that attorneys engage that because otherwise they're going to be spending their time doing things they shouldn't be doing. And that's going to be the problem, is that they're never going to be able to make up for the time that attorneys can save. When, I spend my time counseling people, counselor at law, that's never going to go away. That's why for me, like the dementia focus is so important, because that's something you're always going to need an attorney for, because there's a value judgments in there. It's about taking a set of facts and getting families to kind of work through that journey. So I think all of that's really important. And I think it can be different for every practice area, but applicable to all.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got one question here. One point I wanted to make real quick, just kind of add to what you were talking about, how it's not going to replace attorneys. I have another analogy because I'm just full of them today. I heard someone else, I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk, say that, you know, back when like the cotton gin was invented, people kind of had this same reaction. It's like, oh, this machine's going to replace all the human jobs. And it didn't. It helped people, you know, do the work in the field a lot faster, right? Or, you know, whether it was adding a plow to a tractor, you could plow more in a field versus just a donkey going down a single row. And so, you know, none of these advancements are full replacements. It's helping the people get their job done a lot faster and a lot more efficiently. But Yana here in the chat, asking, outside of a specific legal AI software, which of the free AIs are the best? She's talking about she's been using AI to dictate notes after client meetings, but doesn't have a really good process or tool yet, but does enjoy the memos from dictating. So yeah, outside of legal specific, you know, in terms of creating dictation from the notes, that's not a specific area that I've messed around with anything yet. I know that there's an app, or there's a software called Spoke that can transcribe text, like, you know, so like if you're recording those meetings, you can upload that in there. The problem, which is kind of the second half of the question, there's not really anything free. Like you can get a free trial of something and they'll give you like a certain amount of minutes, but everything's going to be paid. They're generally reasonably priced though on a monthly basis. And so Descript or Spoke, if you're using like audio recorded meetings, I've used those, but you know, maybe in terms of going the opposite way, like trying to upload notes to then have AI dictate it back to you, I haven't gone down that route yet. I don't know, Julie, if you've seen anything or not on your end.
Yeah, so first of all, I'll just I'll talk to you a little bit about client meetings themselves. As far as dictation, to be honest with you, I don't use AI. I just use my phone and the notes on it, or even within Microsoft Word itself. I don't know if you realize that there's a little microphone on it, and you can use that all the time to dictate emails, to dictate notes. And just so everybody knows, it's really important to me, because actually one of my biggest frustrations or exhausting of COVID was I'm a very verbal person, so I don't like to type all of that. But I have found just using that microphone function in Microsoft really good for dictating notes to a client meeting. As far as actual meetings, like let's say it's my internal staff meetings and we want to have a copy of the notes and for it to make an agenda and action items, we've been using Fireflies and we really like that. Very inexpensive. And that's AI powered platform that's specific for meetings. So the difference, and I've never used that with a client. So when I'm in with a client, I've not turned that on. But if I was doing a planning meeting, let's say for the $1 Million Solution, and we were discussing, let's say the marketing coming up for our dementia focused practice, and there was 4 or 5 of us on, and we were talking about it. I do think that works really well to generate an agenda, and then also generate the to-dos. It'll go back through there and kind of list out the to-dos and give us a copy. So that's really helpful. As far as like kind of cheap or honestly, and John, you might say, oh, Julie, that's crazy, but I just use ChatGPT. I just use the kind of basic ChatGPT. I think the issue is that you need to spend time playing around with it and spending some time, because I think a lot of what you get out of it is all in the question that you ask it. So I have recently learned, like for a client meeting, I can say, please make an agenda. I just did this one the other day. Make an agenda for an estate administration probate first meeting. Gave me a great little agenda for that. Now, I didn't actually use it with a client, but I was like, oh, that was pretty cool. And it's something I could auto-populate. But I also think, like, with the search function, like when you give it a prompt, like let's say, make an article about a dementia focused practice, and what I get back isn't what I want, you can be more specific and say, but don't focus so much on healthcare, but focus more on legal. And so I think the power of it is in playing around with asking the right question, or learning how you can refine your searches to make them better.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one app I just thought about while you were talking, I know I have not played around with it very much, but Otter AI, a lot of people use that
Yes.
with their Zoom meetings, and it dictates a lot of that stuff. So that might be one if you haven't checked it out yet. But moving on, just in terms of kind of the future and kind of what's around the corner, Julie, I mean, like what should people be doing? What should kind of the mindset be around exploring AI? You know, is it one of those things where it's like, you know, what do you recommend for people? Like, is it just one of those things where it's like, see what's out there, test a couple of different things, you know, find one specific area in your firm that can really benefit from it? I mean, like, what are you sharing with people right now?
Yeah, so I think that's actually a really great question, because I think it can end up being like a toy that somebody plays with a little bit, and then we all go back to what we're comfortable with. And so I think the first thing is really understanding that, just like anything else, this is a skill that we have to learn. And, you know, as attorneys, we are obligated to understand technology. You know, in many states, and the ABA model rules say that we must understand technology. So I think we need to learn about it. Now, that doesn't mean that every single attorney on here needs to, but somebody at their firm really needs to, or they need to outsource it, come up with a company that they want to use. But I think for everybody, the message is that it's here to stay.
Yeah.
And you need to be tackling it just like any other task. And, you know, I think, you know, for the future, I think there's an interplay here between automation and how clients want information from us, and artificial intelligence, which is how we get content relatively easily. So, you know, I think gone are the days of everybody wants white glove service. That's not true. People want easy.
Yeah.
They want to be able, like, I know, John, when you guys would do a website, you know, they want quick, easy information. They want to be able to access us, you know, not have to call us during the day. And whether that's making a phone call, maybe we're not having to make a phone call to us, whether that's booking an appointment online, whether that is being able to chat with our website.
Yeah.
I think all of these things, it's not just about like this narrow thing. It's about a revolution that's happening that changes how people want to interact with us is changing, and how we create content's changing. And, you know, I think for my office, I can't believe it. You know, John, I told people for years, you have to triage people. Client calls, you make an appointment, you must triage them. Somebody has to call, start a relationship, get a whole bunch of information. And I used that very successfully in my office for years. And now we ask clients, do you want us to do that? And a lot of them say no. And they love just getting on my website and going through my intake process, which is very interactive, but it's automated. It's online. They can do it while they're sitting in the doctor's office, or, you know, Sunday night, not while they're working. And so I think for me, these are kind of interrelated. It's not just how we create content, but how people want to consume us. And whether we're talking about document drafting or anything like that, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, it's thinking about kind of your future clientele, right? Like even, you know, even for, you know, a lot of people in here maybe who are practicing in the elder and estate planning space, you know, as time goes on, even if you're working with the parents of aging adults, those parents have been conditioned over several years to be interacting with these sorts of automation tools and everything. And it's almost, it almost becomes weird when they start interacting with a business that needs this direct one-on-one communication and doesn't have that flexibility of maybe someone scheduling something online or going through an automated form, or even like automated updates from, on how their case is going, or whatever's going on. And so, it really is, it goes back to kind of what I was talking about, how the lawyers and law firms that start integrating this stuff are going to be the ones that replace the lawyers who don't, because people are going to be choosing those firms who have that sort of technology and that flexibility in how you work with them, versus kind of the ones that are still stuck in 2005, which is crazy that I say 2005, because that seems like it was 2 years ago, but it's not.
Yeah. I also think, John, just kind of more evidence of this and needing this more content is, how clients interact with us. So again, when I started my practice, if somebody's accountant or financial advisor referred them to me, people called me. They went from that office, picked up the phone, they called me. I didn't have to do anything. They came in, they liked me, they moved forward. Today, there's a new study out, and I'm sorry that I don't have it in front of me, but I can put it in the notes or somehow with the recording, or if anybody wants it, because I don't want you to think I'm just making stuff up, but I apologize, but it's really important to share, so I want to share it. Half of the people that are referred to an attorney today don't actually go to that attorney. And my opinion is that the difference is they Google you. The difference is, and how do you figure out, how do I put stuff on AVVO? How do I put stuff on LinkedIn? How do I, put stuff on Google? How do I do all this? What's content creation? It all comes back to this AI, which is how do I leverage getting more out there, letting people access more of me, and how do I do that quicker, cheaper, easier? And I think also, even if you're choosing to use outsource this to a company that does it, you need to be using a company that's leveraging AI, because they're going to end up doing it for you quicker, faster, easier. So that's why it's really important that like Spotlight Branding is here, because they're staying ahead of the pack. And so I think that's just more evidence of why is this necessary. That there's a whole study about how people get to attorneys now, and that's just one of the statistics in there. But I'll tell you, John, it blew me away. Half the people don't come to me that were referred. Like that wasn't true 20 years ago. I mean, I don't have a study about it, but I can tell you it wasn't.
Yeah. And echoing all those points. I mean, your website is the first impression that your firm is going to make on people. And, to your point, like they're not calling you first. They're not visiting your physical office space first. They're going to your website first. And, it better be up to standard and have, the content, have a good, robust blog library, a good video library, have multiple options for people to get in touch with you, have, a calendar link, some sort of calendar scheduling, have a chat functionality, really make it as easy as possible for them to take that next step. Even having lead magnets on your website so that you can get that contact information in another way, while also kind of solidifying that expertise, goes a long way. And that's the kind of stuff that people are looking for, because like someone may be referred to you, but they still, they have that little extra push from that family or friend or whoever that referred you, but they still need that validation themselves. And and your website can get them over that hump in that regard. Kind of before we get into these questions here, you being a practicing attorney, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. We kind of mentioned it a little bit at the start, but just ethically speaking, right? What are some things that lawyers do need to watch out for? I know for me, the one thing that I've seen, the big warning out there is like, if you're going to use ChatGPT for anything, don't put any kind of identifying client information in there, because ChatGPT is taking all of the data that's being put into it and it's using it as part of its learning mechanism. So, you can still use it to create, content or do some research around that, but don't use any identifying client information because that probably crosses an ethical line. What else would you suggest in that regard?
Yeah, well, actually, I have some other things, but just to build on that, because I think that's so important. So not only do we as attorneys have to know that, but our staff needs to know that.
Yes.
And just so I'm going to share my screen real quick. So sorry, I just pushed the wrong button. Let me share. Don't worry. Let me share my screen real quick. And if anybody wants this, at the end, we'll have an info email, and I'm happy to give that to them. So there's my screen sharing. So this is part of my confidentiality policy that my staff signs at my office. We do this with all of our staff once a year, and it's actually about 4 pages. And I'm happy to share it with anybody. But I was just recently at a great AgTech conference, and we talked about this, and we talked a lot about what John just said, which is you cannot be putting client information in here, because once you put it in there, it becomes part of its data. And so as attorneys, we can't be doing that. So we added to our client confidentiality policy that all of our employees have to sign, that they understand that they are prohibited from using this for client-related matters or tasks. So different to use it for analysis of a fact pattern that doesn't have client identifying information into it. So no social security numbers, no dates of birth, those types of things. Still really helpful for everything we talked about, but not giving it specifics about our clients is the really important. Client-related matters include, but not limited to, accessing, processing, or disclosing client information, engaging in client communication, or making decisions on behalf of clients using AI tools. No client-related information should be inputted or shared through AI software, including but not limited to ChatGPT. Again, one of the things we're seeing our staff starting to use. Nothing for a young associate to come out of law school now and know this exists and use it to help them on whatever memo you've asked them to do.
Yeah.
Like, you have an obligation. So now down at the bottom, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but just permitted uses are for non-client related things, including data analysis, trend identification, automated content generation, optimization of marketing campaigns, and so it goes on. But this is something we just went over at a staff meeting. We had everybody sign it saying, yes, they agreed, they acknowledged that they're not supposed to be using it. So I think, one, being an attorney and understanding this more is really important, but you also have to trickle that down to your staff, because they could inadvertently use it, not understanding all of the concerns. And I'll be honest with you, John, before I went to some of these things, I didn't think that through. I didn't think about the fact that when you put it out there, it now becomes part of that data set. And that's a clear breach of confidentiality.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the biggest hurdle. The other thing I would say, and this just kind of reiterates what we kind of talked about before, which is there's good and bad with everything. Right. So let's not stop just because there could be something here. Let's communicate. Let's learn more about it and communicate with our staff so that they know what's allowed to happen. And this is something, I started my law practice in my garage, and now it's grown to 4 locations, and we're about to grow to 6. So I have a lot of staff, and I don't know what everybody's doing. That does not mean that there wouldn't be certain staff people who could, like my law partner or a senior associate, who we might not, I wouldn't say bend the rules, not put client information in here. If you read my policy, it's pretty strict. Don't do anything client related. Where you might bend that might be the one person that learns a little bit more. And again, I'm not saying put client information in, but there's a lot of gray areas in what we're talking about and figuring out more of that. So it's not, although it might look like it's a little bit more of a ban, that's for a blanket for all of my staff. And so I think that's important that you kind of start there and then maybe grow on it as you learn more and get more comfortable with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And and to your point, I mean, there's that little bit of a learning curve. And so, look for different things in various aspects. Vanessa had a question here, just asking for more AI program and application names that are leading the AI space regarding law firms. I'll just kind of reiterate the ones that I mentioned briefly up at the start. There's Case Point for e-discovery, Case Text or Fast Case for legal research, and then Bloomberg or Litigate, which is exactly how litigate is spelled, but they capitalize the G. You know how they do the cutesy application name. But for litigation analysis, disclaimer: like, I'm not a lawyer, so like I have not personally tested any of those applications out myself. Those are just what I've been seeing in my research as some of the most popular tools within the legal space for those different areas.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, we've got about 20 minutes left. I want to open it up to questions that any of you in here have. We did get a handful from people who were not going to be able to attend live, but they did say they were going to watch the recording later. So I wanted to address those. So anyone in here, if you have any other specific questions about AI, go ahead and throw those in the chat. And we can kind of start addressing some of these in here. The first one, Julie, I think this one's more up your alley. Is AI replacing drafting software?
Well, I think yes. I think drafting software that's very static, that's maybe national, that's not dealing with an individual client or dealing with an individual state or what individually a law office is wanting, I think is going to be a way of the past. And so I know for me, I work a lot with Legal Gen and Enrico there that really helps build customized systems. And I think AI is kind of part of that, really saying, so at my law firm, what do I want my documents to be? And so like building a brand around that, I think is really important. And doing that in a way that is much more automated and digitally functioned, rather than client getting information, I think is really important. Now, some of that may be how you put it together for your own firm. Like clearly AI could touch a number of different ways, from how do I decide how to do this myself to what is actually the content.
Yeah.
But, just so everybody knows, there are law firms who have their own AI-based platform just for their law firms. So of course, we're able to do this.
Yeah.
So for me, I think about drafting software, and I think about client intake systems as like the things that need digitized, automated, and can benefit from AI.
Yeah. Awesome. One that got sent to me specifically, asking about how if Google has implemented AI for their ads platform. We at Spotlight Branding don't do any kind of SEO or Google ads work, but I do know just internally with kind of the Google ads that we run, Google has started kind of integrating some AI into their learning algorithms for Google ads. I've seen mixed reviews in terms of how effective it is. Just the slightest mistweak of something could send the AI just down this really weird rabbit hole and start showing your ads to a bunch of irrelevant people in way different locations than what you're doing. So if you're one of the people out there who is managing the Google ads themselves, I would be really careful, just kind of messing around with that and just really stay on top of how the ads are performing, because again, it's still really early on. All of these new AI integrations are just now coming out, so there's a lot of bugs that need to get fixed in those things. And so, it's gonna get better, and I would expect, maybe a few months, maybe a couple of years from now, the AI learning ability will happen much faster for new ads that you create. That will help get you some better results and a better ROI on those things. Another question that we had, can we use AI to attract a younger demographic at our law offices? We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier in kind of how you set your website up even, and just having those options available. I mean, is there anything else, Julie, that you wanted to add to that in terms of attracting the younger demographics or setting those expectations for younger people as they come up and need, legal services?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that we have to think about is like, so clearly I'm an elder law and estate planning attorney. People may say, well, you don't need the younger demographic. I do, John,
Yeah.
because millennial grandchildren are caregivers and they want to get to me differently.
Yeah.
And I've done a really good job at my office in being able to reach to them. And so maybe that's why I see more of them, but it's a thing where it's the grandchildren, because they're not tied to a house. They're not tied to a job. They can work virtually. They're actually phenomenal caregivers because they're flexible. So what I would say to people is like, don't think of the younger demographic as, oh, I don't serve those people. Yes, you do. We also have to think about the ages of millennials. And so when we think about I'm older than a millennial, so clearly I know. But when we think about the ages, they're the people in front of us. Like we think of them as younger. And I think it's a phenomenal generation. I happen to have a child who's a millennial.
You're the first person I've ever heard say that about us. That's nice.
I think they've changed what work-life balance means. Yeah. And again, I'm really interested. So, John, I have my bachelor's degrees in gerontology. So I really love to see how this is changing. And they're phenomenal caregivers. And it's because of some of the choices that they made that were different than their parents, not right or wrong. So I think the point for me is you have to be doing these things, because I don't care what practice you're in. I don't care what type of law you do. You are dealing with the younger generation, and you better learn how to talk to them and how to market to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
and I think AI can.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, to your point, like I'm a millennial, I'm 33, right? I probably don't look it, but I'm 33. I have a kid on the way. Like I'm a full-fledged adult. Like I'm going to need these things. I need to get an estate plan, and especially for estate planning lawyers, like, you serve everybody, but even like family lawyers, like, it's at a point now where like the first wave of the Gen Zers are into adulthood. They're families and kids who need estate plans, or if you're in a family law attorney, they're getting divorced, or they're starting businesses or anything like that. They're there. Like it's not at a point where it's coming soon. Like it's here now. And so, these are the people that you serve, whether you like it or not. I mean, I guess you don't have to, you can go out of business, but like you said, being able to provide that flexibility and being able to meet the expectations that they have when they're interacting with other businesses really going to help you stand out from other firms who are slow to catch on to that sort of thing.
Now, John, I feel like I need to note for the record that my daughter, that's a millennial, is one of the younger millennials. She's like, I don't want everybody to think, I could be like your mom or something, right? Yeah. I have to note that. Yeah. But it's really important, because when we think about her, like, so she lives in Boston. She's a CPA. She works remotely. Yeah. She's not making an appointment at a nail salon or a hair salon if she can't do it online. She's not calling any place. Yeah. That doesn't mean she's good, bad, or otherwise. She has her boundaries. She has what she does. She also, my mom is very sick. She's home right now. Why? Because my mom's sick and she can. But to think that she's not able to make a buying decision, she owns her own place in Boston. She's fully employed. Like, so I think it's two things. One, that people don't realize how old the millennials are, but also that generation they're adults. They bring so much to the table, and they are making room for things. And they have buying power. Yeah. So I think that's all, my other kids are younger. So.
Oh, you're good. I have one more question here. And then we can kind of wrap up, or if anyone out there has any last minute questions, definitely feel free to throw them in the chat. We will absolutely have time for those. But can AI do my marketing for me? And as someone who works in a marketing company, you might be surprised at this answer. It can, to a degree. I think it kind of depends, obviously, on what your marketing strategy is. If we're talking about the content side of things, and we've touched on it a little bit here, it can create some decent first drafts for you when it comes to maybe the blog articles that you're writing, or at the very least, it can help you generate some topic ideas, whether it's for a blog or maybe you have a podcast that you want to generate some episode ideas for, maybe some frequently asked questions to do videos on. Like, it's great for topic generation. I would say that if you're going to do research and you're trying to use Chat GPT, remember kind of what I said earlier, the information that it's using is about 2 years old. Google Bard, Google's kind of Chat GPT alternative, is being rolled out now. From what I can tell, because it has access to Google search engine, it's a little bit more up to date, but ChatGPT is a better writer. So you might need to like go between the two if you're trying to, really flesh out a lot of articles. But again, Julie, like you said earlier, it's still going to be really important for you to take whatever it gives you and put your fingerprints on it. Revise kind of how the intro comes out, revise maybe some specific points that it makes, make sure it concludes, make sure you have your call to action in there, because it's still really painfully obvious, at least to me as someone who is a copywriter, an article that was fully written by AI versus one that's written or at least been heavily edited by an actual person. Like there's just so many small nuances and differences there, but it can help, especially if you're trying to build up a social media presence. There are tools out there. Quillbot is a really good tool for just creating some social media content. You can have it help you write posts, especially that's where your entire audience is, especially your younger audience. And if you feel like you don't really understand how to communicate with them on social media, or if you feel like social media is just a different language for you, it can really create some good social media posts for you. You slap a link on for the blog or the video that you're talking about, and you can post that as well. Graphics, there are a couple of AI tools out there that can create some custom graphics for you. I know Adobe just released Firefly, which can do that. I've been playing around with an app called Tome, Tome. That one I'm still on the fence about. It can create some weird stuff, like if you're not super specific with your prompts, just like some real dystopian looking images that are more scary than effective. But so again, like, it can do some of your marketing for you. I don't think it's like a set it and forget it thing where you can just let it create everything for you. But if you are trying to handle it all on your own, it can take away a lot of the time commitment that it does to create some of that stuff for you.
Absolutely. And especially for those people who are in part of the law that's both state and federal specific, and that there's an interplay between the two. I just don't see it being able to do that. But still, issue spots still gives me a great starting point, great first draft. So really valuable to me.
So as we wrap up here, Julie, how can people learn more about what MDS does and let everyone know what you guys have coming up in the future?
Yeah, fantastic. So two things. If there's anything, questions that you had today, you want a copy of the privacy policy, the confidentiality policy, you can just go on to info@themilliondollarlawyer.com. And I think Dom is going to put up a place for you to be able to contact the $1 Million Solution. You just contact them there. All it's going to do is allow you to send an email. He also can put it into the chat. That's for any questions about this, any way we can help you. Our goal is really to help people individually find the lives and practices that they desire. We're not a coaching group that tells everybody you must do this, but rather like, what do you want your life to look like? And then how do we do that? So again, info@themilliondollarlawyer.com. And then secondly, we do have an exciting webinar coming up. It is August the 17th at 4:00. And we'll be in that webinar talking about automation and what we really need to be doing to our law firms, not just with AI, but how do we need to automate our firms so that we are able to stay up with the changes. And for me, that's often saving money. So when I talk about digital intakes, I have to tell you guys, it's exciting because my staff is so excited about it and it saves me money. I don't usually get to say to my staff, I need you to do this, and they're excited and it saves them money. And Dom, if you want to put up that link, if you click on that link, you can register for that Legal Gen webinar. And he can also put the link in the chat. And John, with that, I'll put it over you to, talk about what they can do to interact with you and learn more about Spotlight branding.
Absolutely. Thank you. So like I said up at the front, we provide content marketing. And I know that a lot of this conversation was like, well, you can just have AI do content for you. Well, you can if you have the time, but if you need some professionals to work directly with you to do it, we provide blogging services, video services, social media, podcast production, email marketing, really important, and also website design. So if you need a new website for your firm that speaks to this younger generation and gives them the flexibility that they want, that makes you look really good, that is also where we shine really well. And if you're interested in chatting more with our team about that, you can email solutions@spotlightbranding.com. Oh, Tom got us a pop-up too. That's awesome. We also have kind of a part 2 to this webinar series coming up in a couple of weeks on August 24th. Me and my social media guy, Mike, we will be doing some live demonstrations of a couple of different AI platforms to show you how to generate some of the marketing content for your law firm. I know we're going to look at Quillbot, like I mentioned, also going to look at one of the image generators. We're also going to look at how to take like some videos. Like, for example, if you did a webinar like this, there's a program out there called opus.ai that you can upload the video to, and it will automatically create several different video clips that you can then post to Instagram or your TikTok channel, whatever it is, and really makes the video content creation process really simple for you, and really saves you a lot of time with that. And so that is happening on August 24th. Dom, right on it with the link there, and he'll throw it in the chat as well. Really hope to see you guys there as well. And already got one excited for August 24th. Love it. Thank you, Vanessa. So yeah, hope to see you all there. Go to spotlightbranding.com/AI part 2, number 2, to register for that. And yeah, hope to see you all there. And I think that's it. Thank you all for attending here today. Thank you for the questions that you guys submitted beforehand. And again, yeah, if you have some other questions later on, feel free to email myself or Julie at those emails that we have put in the chat. And yeah, I think that's all we got.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I hope everybody has a good day.